What's up, everyone? This is David, aka Reverse Long, and I'm here with Justin Robertson of the Butwood community, crypto community. Justin's a friend of mine. We've been doing podcasts for a while, since the very beginning of this podcast channel. I remember when the podcast was only audio. We did a crypto series because I used the podcast as a way to learn crypto because I absolutely knew zero about crypto. I came in fresh. I still kind of, I'm still learning all the time. I was trying to transfer, I did transfer all a majority of my crypto assets into cold storage. And we did a podcast about that. I think that was the last podcast we did. If we might have done another one, but Justin's been a main staple on the podcast, and it's just really cool to connect with Justin all the time. He's very well-spoken person and very clear explainer with everything crypto related. And now he's working in the Web3 industry. And you can touch on that later. But like, yeah, it's really cool. Like he's actually now in the whole Web3 space, as you know, so we're gonna do some stuff in the future on that. But this podcast, I wanted to go and reach out to Justin and talk about current thoughts and current observations on BTC, correlated with the SPY and the overall markets and crypto and the state of crypto in general. Because right now, Bitcoin, it just hit 18,500, and yeah, that's a new low for a while now. So what's up, Justin? How's it going?
What's going on? Appreciate you having me back on, man. I'm always down to hop on and talk the markets anytime I can catch you when you're not globetrotting around the world. I always appreciate it. So happy to be here.
Absolutely, man. Yes, it's great to always connect with you, man. I remember the times we were here. Over a year ago.
Over a year.
We did like a week of trading in the pre-market in LA, and it must have been. And I didn't. Yeah, I was like, man, you want to come in this pre-market? Let's go. But it was like 1 a.m. to 6 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That was a butt whooping for me. I was like, I was mentally preparing for it, but then like when you're actually in it is like a different ball game. So
yeah, well, that's cool. We saw it do that. I don't really do trading with people live, except maybe in Puerto Rico. But yeah, maybe one day we'll do that again. So I'm always down to connect and stuff.
Do that kind of stuff. I gotta catch you when you're in the office, man. You don't stay in the office more than 2 days till it's another country. So
yeah, Argentina was great. But yeah, bro. Okay, so Justin, how do you want to start this? So let's see. We can start with however you want. The main topics. So
yeah, there's so much going on in the markets, right? So obviously from a big broader perspective, I guess some of the huge things that we can kind of slide into are the inflation, the CPI numbers that are coming out. I believe I have the dates. Let me pull up the dates when some of this important information is coming out, because there's usually event-driven news around some of these dates. So we got CPI data on the 13th. For crypto lovers, we got the ETH merge on the 15th. So those are both probably going to be, I don't know, maybe sell the news events. The FOMC rate hike decision on the 21st. And then also Cardano is doing their Vassal hard fork on the 22nd. So just a few Cardano crypto updates. But in the broader picture, like we were saying, CPI data coming out is going to be huge. We know that it came in, I believe the number last time was like 8.5, down from 8.7, which is, there's no reason to really celebrate 8.5 inflation. That's like still really bad when the target is like 2 to 3. So something to be aware of there, meaning that most likely the rate hikes will continue. I think it's expected right now to bring in at 75 basis points. And so what that means is interest rates will just continue to rise, going up by 0.75 from what they currently are. Obviously, we know that they raise interest rates to suppress borrowing of money. With less liquidity in the markets, less people are spending money, and that hopefully brings prices back down. So that's kind of what we're looking at from the broader picture. It's pretty scary right now when you think about. Are you familiar with what's going on with Russia and Germany and their nat gas situation?
Vaguely, man. No, I've been, like you said, I was globetrotting mostly.
Yeah.
No,
internet. For sure.
Yeah. So
not financial advice. Obviously, I don't want y'all to think I'm some macro expert here either. I'm just a guy on the internet that likes to read, right? So I was checking out Germany right now are protesting, and they are protesting against their government for the sanctions on Russia. So basically, Germany gets their nat gas exports from Russia, right? And so nat gas exports meaning like the natural gas to heat and cool their homes, right? So their natural energy. So because Russia invaded Ukraine, the US and part of the United Nations put sanctions on Russia saying, hey, we can't do any business with Russia right now. Because there's no business being done with Russia, Germany has nowhere to get their natural gas, aka nowhere to get anywhere to heat or cool down their homes. And winter is coming. Game of Thrones, shout out. House of Dragons, y'all should watch it if you haven't seen it.
Oh, by the
But
way, quick, in the Natural History Museum, they have the Game of Thrones exhibition. I'm meaning to check it out.
all
You know,
right.
downtown the USC Natural
Yeah,
History.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the they have the whole thrones there, the swords and everything. But yeah, I
All
don't know.
right.
You just mentioned that, so I had to say it. But
Nah, I
yeah,
used to pass it when I take Exposition Boulevard. Anyway, all right, we're getting off
yeah,
topic,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
so
okay.
Germany has nowhere to get natural gas right now, and so what
Winter's
they
coming.
told
Yeah,
with winter is coming, right? So
yeah.
they told right now there's actually schools in Germany that are heating their classrooms with wood fires, with log, with wood, which is that's pretty insane when
Hey,
you
that's
think
pretty
about it,
insane.
right? And
Yeah.
it's only going to get worse as the US has something called, I think it's SPR, petroleum reserves, special petroleum reserves, something
Uh-huh.
along those lines. And basically, the US has been depleting their reserves over the past however long since we put on these sanctions on Russia. So we haven't been really buying anything on the open market. So eventually, we're going to be buying oil and other reserves on the open market, and it's going to cause prices to go even higher. All right, so to put a bow on that and kind of wrap up that first little part right there, all that being said, basically boils down to this: Germany has no way to heat their homes during this winter. And the only way that they're most likely going to be able to do so is by doing business with Russia. Germany's citizens are looking at protesting or already started protesting, impossible, who knows what that snowballs into, turning back on the business deals with Russia to get that natural gas because no one's, trying to freeze. So that is the debate we're going right now. Are we going to concede and allow Russia to take over Ukraine, which could lead to other ripple effects? It's unsure, but that is some of the strains going on in the macro view. So with those things going on in the market, right, it's not looking great, not looking great at all.
That increases the amount of uncertainty around all the commodity space, and you know
It,
and
it continues to
amongst
drive
everything, it's
up.
a whole rocky road, and a lot of maybe anxiety over possible hot war or things like that.
Yeah,
And
well, it's fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? Those are the
yeah,
biggest drivers that make people make decisions in markets, right? So when you have fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that everyone gets scared and they start acting irrationally. So what does that tell us for investors, long or short term, that opportunity is coming, right? When there's people that are being unreasonably fearful or unreasonably joyful or excited, right? We know that there's a lot of opportunity coming to the markets. So in my opinion, I think it's a great time to start looking at assets to acquire. Me personally, I dollar cost average into Bitcoin and Ethereum because I think it'll be here in the long run. I'm not telling anyone else to do that, it's just my beliefs personally. But if this does play out the way it's looking, we could go over to the next 12 months of continued recession-like fears, which would lead to continued downward pricing. And if you're just buying, hey, I'm buying $100 a month of stock X, not stock X, but any stock, right? To averages the market could be a great play.
and yes, and a little bit on that topic, living through the March 2020 COVID market crash. Did you experience that? Did you watch it, or did you part of it at all?
So that was part. So I got into investing in 2017 with Bitcoin and Ethereum, but I didn't know anything more than just like buy and sell. I had no framework or no mental understanding of like what an investor was or even how to do any trading. And so I made a little bit of money in that time, but I kind of just faded away from it. I never really messed with it again. And then during the COVID crash, is when I really started looking to investing more seriously and more aggressively. And that's when I started taking like 12-hour days and really understanding what it is to be an investor and what type of emotion you're going to be going through and doing the, all the research, you're crossing your T's, dotting your I's. So I didn't have the mindset that I do have now
I
from then.
absolutely no. The reason why I ask is because that was an over fearful kind of event. You know, if you look at the charts, it was a huge dip. I remember the market in general, halt down, limit down, and like had been trading a couple years, kind of like similar like you, not on and off, and I never saw a market halt down. And there was just extreme fear, everybody thinking that this is the next zombie apocalypse gonna happen. And and then I know a few people, big players that had cash ready to go, and they were actually buying. They bought as it's going lower, and like it's like when I think Warren Buffett says, when there's blood on the streets, that's when he's buying. Or I
Right.
interviewed Walter Deemer, old school investor analyst. He says the time to buy is like when you want to throw up on your desk. That's the time you buy. You know, it's
That's
crazy.
exactly
And he's like, when you feel like throwing up, like that's when you buy.
right.
And I mentioned that because like, is not round two or round three, but is that extra fear, blood on the streets event that like I have been anticipating personally for a long time, but like I stopped anticipating it. I just go and trade along the way as a different strategy, but like a bear strategy. But in anticipation of that crash, because we know that the market was overextended. We printed out all this money. Um, I remember in LA, businesses were shut down, coffee shops closing down. All my favorite coffee shops downtown, all gone, but the market's still hitting new highs. And unemployment money, all these PPP loans getting spitted out, and like we get new highs, new highs, new highs. So like so that time, um, I mean, who knows when it's coming, but like I have this chart of Tulip Mania. You've seen it on my thing.
Yep.
And like when that crash does come, you got to be ready for it. And that's going to be the opportunity of a lifetime. So and it happened like in 99 with Amazon. I just listened to a podcast with Robert Kiyosaki. He was talking with uh not Harvey. This man, I forgot his name. But he this investor that was in a fund involved with a hedge fund. And in around 2000, when Amazon was at 136, it crashed to $6, and he just
Ooh,
scooped it up. And then now look, so like
yeah.
Amazon went from 136. People forget this, It's like it's hard to find these charts unless you really dig back, and you
Yeah.
have the right
Unless you try.
software. Yeah, unless so you see the real players had that big crash back then. And it's like you got to be able to have the funds, or you have to be ready in anticipation of that. You always got to have some kind of stuff allocated for an opportunity like that. And that's when you add, like I like Patrick Bet David of he has the channel Valuetainment, and like he's
Valuetainment.
saying like in the next 12 to 18 months, it's not even that long, that you
That's
you
not
can
that long.
12 to 18 months, people are going to be adding 2 to 3 zeros or more to their name. So
So this is why I'm so excited. Like this is why I'm so excited because pretty much all the points that you just kind of spoke to, right? So in March 2020, I didn't have the mindset or the understanding that I needed, right? I also didn't have the capital, right? I just didn't have the money or the mindset. So since that time, I started developing the mindset and I saw how much people were able to improve their lives. Obviously, it was a dramatic event, and we're saddened by everything that was affected negatively from it. But people were also able to improve their lives if they were prepared, right? And so, like, I think a similar type thing is coming. We've been in what they call the everything bubble for years now. I'm not sure if you've heard that term, but the everything bubble pretty much relates to equities, housing, bonds, commodities, and cryptocurrencies and stocks all just kind of inflating like to a crazy price while all at the same time. And a part of the reason why they were saying that was kind of based on the demographics of this is the most 30-year-olds all coming into like having full-time jobs, buying houses, buying cars, investing in assets, but also just because we haven't had any interest rate raises since 2007, and the housing crash and how much quantitative easing was put into the market, right? More liquidity getting added to the market. So in 1999, 2000, pets.com was valued at, I think it was $48 billion. and they had $0 in sales. So that company was valued at 48 billion with $0 in sales, right? And we're seeing similar types of things happening with spot companies, with cryptocurrencies, with at like housing markets, just things that are getting valued with these crazy valuations that really don't, the underlying asset isn't, worth that. So in my opinion, if you are prepared and you're educated, then you can really take advantage. Just like you're saying, like Patrick was saying, someone's going to add a couple zeros, and like I always say, shoulda, coulda, but would you? But
Yeah.
would you make it you?
By the way, Patrick was one of the guys that was buying when the market crashed in 2020. He was telling his I don't know who runs the money for him, but he's saying buy, it's going lower. He's like, are you sure? Buy. So he was buying all over that crash. But he's super wealthy. He's always got cash in his hands. But
Yeah, it's a little bit
it's
different.
a little different, yeah. But anyway, Justin, also I wanted to, so maybe you can explain how now like Bitcoin and the SPY are kind of correlated. Their charts are moving almost in sync. It's almost like I hear people saying on the equity side, they're saying, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin is SPY." It's like the same thing now. It's
Yeah,
so yeah. Are you going to talk about that? Touch on it?
yeah. And on my end, I'm also just looking at my screen here. I'm trying to pull up Bitcoin and SPY just so I can kind of look at it as I talk about it. But yeah, for the longest time now, they have been correlated, and that's been one of like the kind of unsettling factors about the situation, right? Because um Bitcoin is supposed to be seen as a store of value and an inflation hedge, right? So basically, with the thought process being the dollar is going to get devalued, and Bitcoin, because it does have a limited supply, there'll never be more than 21 million ever created, that it should, in theory, has more demand, meaning increase in price. Unfortunately, though, Bitcoin has been following it's being treated as a tech stock, like it just being traded as a tech stock. But I would say because it's being traded as tech stock because tech stock investors are the ones investing in it. You know what I mean? So it's like we know that the market is just people making decisions, right? It's me and you and Betty Sue all just making decisions in the market. Sometimes we're buying, sometimes we're selling, we're doing whatever news driven events are happening. They're making us make decisions. So if the same type of people are investing in the Nasdaq that are also investing in Bitcoin, then that kind of shows why there would be some type of correlation there. Bitcoin isn't being used for its natural purpose yet. It's not being used as a store of value. It's not being used as an inflation hedge. It's being used as a speculative asset, which is fine. And it's because, that's going to have major volatility, major price swings. But at the end of the day, we're looking at Bitcoin in like a kind of a narrowed view, right? We're looking at Bitcoin right now. What's it doing today, September 6th, 2022? What has it been doing the past 6 months, right? But when we look at it, any asset over a given period of time, right? That span of time, 10 years, 5 years, 10 years, or a complete life cycle, 20 years, whatever it may be, you start to see the true colors of that asset. So Bitcoin's not being used properly in a sense by the people that are actually investing their money. They're not buying Bitcoin, taking it and putting it in cold storage and using it as a store of value like me and you are, right? That's owning your own asset. That's digital ownership. That means no one can take that away from you. They're investing in Bitcoin in multiple other ways, whether it be like some type of derivative or GBTC, which is like where you can invest in stocks of Bitcoin, but you don't actually own the underlying asset. So there's a bunch of different ways that investors can invest into Bitcoin, but they're not treating Bitcoin as someone that is native to cryptocurrency is treating Bitcoin. We native to crypto are treating it as a asset that we want to hold forever, similar to like a home we want to pass down to our children, compared to other people that are investing in it are treating it more speculative. And I'm not saying that it's not like one to one, right? It's not like every crypto native person is treating it like an asset and every other person isn't. It's a mix, but to my best guess, that's what I would see is the reasoning mostly for the correlation, because people aren't treating it as its intended purpose just yet. There's still a lot of education that has to go to understand the blockchain space.
Gotcha. And another thing I wanted to ask you. So I know a lot of people with crypto and Bitcoin, all that were, they were over leveraged for a long time, up until very recent, or since for a few months now. And I've
Right.
noticed like some talk like in Puerto Rico, like there was a lot of people coming into Puerto Rico with like crypto millionaires and billionaires or whatever. and now there's less talk of that. And I've heard also people talk about um how like a lot of crypto millionaires have been wiped out, and because I guess they were over leveraged and all this. So what have you been hearing stuff down the grapevine yourself of like stories like that? Like now there's like I heard there was a number like 80, there's 80,000 less crypto millionaires. That was like a month ago. So like, this speculative asset that you're saying, all these derivatives and over leverage and people living over their means and all that, living in this almost like a dream world of just getting over leverage and all nonstop. All this misbehavior in the markets from overvaluation and pump and dumps and all these derivatives. What's your take on all that? So it's got to like this is part of the purge, it's like cleaning the whole system out and refreshing almost. What's your take on that?
I mean, yeah, to a sense, right? Like when you're in an everything bubble, everyone's a genius. Myself included, I thought I was a genius, right? I got into crypto, I got into trading, I got into NFTs, and I was making money, but I was also putting in the work. So I was reading, I was doing my research, I was following up, I was learning, I was looking out for mentors like you. I was asking questions, and I was like lucky enough to putting myself in position to learn. But when you're learning and starting out and you're also winning all the time, you start to get a little cocky. That ego starts to creep in. And then if you're not continually staying on your education, or if you've just never been in that situation, it's hard to always make the right move, right? So I think that everything bubble led to a lot of people, like I said, myself included, that kind of got in over their head or got their head over their skis, whatever, however you want to say it. All of a sudden you went from having, maybe $10,000 that your grandparents left you to, $250,000 in Ethereum or in, Dogecoin or whatever it may be. And then you bought, from that 250,000, you took 100,000 and bought some Bored Apes. And then the Bored Apes went up to 300,000 each. So, a lot of people got caught up in that, and you just thought the ride wasn't going to end. The music wasn't going to stop. Again, I'll say it again, myself included. I'm, honest enough to admit that. But there's also those people that are going to leave the space and never come back because maybe they were never, intended to really be here in the first place. And then there's going to be other people that be like, all right, I got my ass kicked and I'm going to stick around, learn from that, and now I'm be more prepared for next time. So I think it's just part of that everything bubble. It's just part of, once you have that much liquidity in the system and you have the government literally just printing more and more money, and then stocks are just making higher highs, and you have one of the biggest crashes, in our lifetime in COVID or, pandemic situation, and the price is just going right back up to a new high. It's
V-shaped recovery,
Yeah, right, a
Trump.
V-shaped
V-shape.
recovery. I learned what that was quick.
Man.
So yeah, like it just makes it kind of like, oh, I get it now.
It's
Um,
it's crazy because like even before COVID and the V-shaped recovery and all that, we were on a bubble since like 2000, what was it, 2008, 10? I don't know. It was many years. 10
right.
year, over 10-year plus bubble. It's the longest, not bubble, but like the longest bull market in history. And then you have the blow off top now, which is like crypto and everything, like you said, in everything bubble. You can't go wrong. You just buy.
Yeah, you just
Um,
buy. It's like it makes perfect sense.
it's crazy, man. Like when I was in Puerto Rico, I remember there was a Puerto Rican girl. She was telling me about she bought this NFT of this vampire NFT, and I don't know if I told you this story. And then
I
for
think so.
like $50, and then after a certain point, she was showing me on OpenSea, it's like $6,000, and I'm like, and this is a Puerto Rican girl. Puerto Ricans are like from the island. They're not like wealthy or anything. It's probably the
Right,
most money she's ever encountered. And I'm
right.
like, man, you gotta sell that. Like this. And she's like, no, this is themed for Halloween. And then I'm gonna sell it after Halloween. I'm gonna keep it. And I was like, and I'm telling her that's a sell the news event. It's
Sell the
probably,
news.
and then, but also at the same time, it was an everything bubble too. And what is, she's never experienced a bubble and a crash and all that. So it sucks that we as human beings we have to go through it ourselves. Like, you know what I mean. So to learn, and finally, it's like touching the stove, and eventually you understand how it feels. So it
Yeah,
sucks that
shout out to Mark Douglas, right? Touching the stove. That's
Mark
like
Douglas did mention
trade.
that.
Yeah, trading in the zone by Mark Douglas. If you're a beginner out there, even
So
if you're not a beginner, great book
yeah,
to start out with.
his spouse recently gave she worked with him hand in hand, like behind the scenes and stuff, just as much as he did with trading psychology. She just did a
Oh,
podcast with Market Confessions of a Market Maker podcast. I encourage everyone to check that out. I'm reaching out to her, trying to get her on also. But but yeah, we got to touch it ourselves. And like, when you mentioned the everything bubble too, I remember growing up. I don't know if you know much about baseball, but there was this team, the Atlanta Braves, like in the '90s. They had like a 10-year or 12-year period of being in first place all the time. So like if you
yeah,
were a
Tom
kid,
Glavine back in the
yeah,
Tom
those
Glavine
guys, yeah,
days.
yeah, all the uh Maddox,
Schmaltz.
Greg, yeah, yeah, exactly. So like, imagine you're a kid, like 12 years old, and all the way to you're 22, you know nothing except the Braves are number one. It's like then you get number two or last place, like you don't even know how that feels, So
You're like, what
10
is
years
this?
later, like so it's like that's what's going on now. No one really knows how this feels. A lot of people in the space, especially the younger guys that are in crypto. Remember, I remember like I was before trading. I was in the tutoring business. I would tutor like a lot, and I loved it. It was cool. Except eventually the kids start to like do stuff, and it was telling me he smokes weed and stuff. I got to tell the parents. I kind of uncomfortable. I just quit after that. But
Right. Like, I
but
didn't sign up to be a snitch.
yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I was like, man, this is too much, man. I can't take it. And then like trading started improving, so like that was that. But I remember the kids who were telling me they were buying Bitcoin and like they knew nothing except it's going up, up, up. This is 2017. Yeah, and then it crashed and like that must have been a crazy experience for them because like for that was a short amount of time though. I don't know, a few months, and like they felt like euphoria, and then they felt the opposite of euphoria, and I could tell by their behavior, and like you know what I'm saying, like just being depressed, because their parents
That's a
would give
lot
them
to handle at a young age.
yeah, let's think of a 17, 18-year-old. The parents help open an account, and then like I don't know how much money they have, but it's like a little, who knows.
Right.
But then they lose it, because when I remember it hit like 20,000, and I didn't know anything about like pump and dumps or charts like that, parabolic charts.
Yeah. Skateboard.
And I was telling the kids, I was like, man, this kind of looks like a pump and dump, like a Tulip Mania chart. And and 20,000, like 20,000 is a psychological number. Key resistance area, maybe you should take some off. And this is like what I was studying, so I was no one to really give any kind of suggestion or whatever. I wasn't even like profitable myself.
Right.
But that ended up, hitting that level and coming down. And then like now it's crazy. Now we're hanging around that level. So I was gonna ask you that also, because okay, so we had so that was 2017. It went from 20,000, then it crashed and kept going down to like 4 or 5,000. This
Mhm.
Bitcoin, and
Mhm.
then in 2020, all of a sudden 2019 there's a resurgence, and then we break 20,000 again, and then it goes. Everybody's all over crypto from 2020 to 2020, end of 2021, where it hits like 69,000. That's less than a year ago, I think. And then
Yeah, so keep going.
yeah. So they hit 69,000. And then now, like, since the market is kind of turning bearish, because, like, since January, the market the stock market for in general has been a bear market, and
Hmm.
like people the Fed or whatever, they can say whatever they want. Janet Yellen or Powell can make their new definitions for it, whatever. But it's a bit as a trader, we got to be sober and see what we're facing, what we're up against, and it's a bear market. And so that crypto has been coming down as well, but more volatile. So it's just it cracks. Those cracks are very volatile. And then fade and crack and fade, crack and fade. Then bear bounce, and it's like bounce, and then fade, crack. Um,
Right.
so what is your take on that? Because now we're hanging around. So I mentioned all that. Okay, so now we're hanging around 20, 19,000, 18,000, and those were kind of the highs of 2020. So we're at that support level right now. So what, as a crypto person, so do you and I mentioned this before with you, like I saw 19 as like a support level. So what's your take on that? So like we're hanging around, we're kind of cracking that support level. So then there's like another support level where we're headed down a little lower maybe, and then you got to just be ready for it. You got to anticipate that like it's gonna be here for a little bit. We're here and we gotta hang out. It's no time to start like loading up. Or what do you think?
So So it's interesting for a few reasons. So the first reason is for what we talked about at the beginning of the on this call, the macro environment. So Bitcoin has never been around during a recessionary type environment. I mean, if you want to call the COVID crash, but it literally happened so
That was
fast
so
that
quick. Yeah, as a
yeah,
month.
everything
Yeah.
recovered. So it was, I don't know how real recessionary that you can call that. And then also the government stepped in with quantitative easing, which also propelled the markets to continue on. So first thing is that the macro situation looks like it's not going to be resolved within the next 6 to 12 months. So that's the first thing. Second thing is that Bitcoin, it's still true to this day that there's never been a 4 year period where you have not bought Bitcoin and not been in profits if you held for 4 years, right? So I think what's that like 1,460 days, whatever. So like if you bought Bitcoin and held for 4 years, there's never been a time where you're not in profit. So that was starting to get threatened kind of here. If you go back and you look at the December 2017 highs, that's when Bitcoin punched up to about 20K. And 4 years from that day would have put us at December 2021. But the price December 2021 was still $50,000 Bitcoin. So it was still at a 2x at that time. So right now, currently, if we go back 4 years from this current date, the price was $8,000. So there's still like
So 4 years
over
ago, so 4 years ago, it was $8,000.
today. Yeah. So if you go back to whatever today is, September 22nd or September 5th. So let me find the actual day because I kind of just rounded there. But yeah, so 8,000 in September of 2018.
Very interesting. No one was
So
talking about it.
there's
Very
never
quiet.
been, well, they were done talking about it, right? So everyone was saying Bitcoin was in a bubble because it had that blow off top and it reached 20K and then it dropped all the way down from 20K back down to 3,500. No one was talking about Bitcoin at all. And if you would have been buying there and you would have held till
It's
this top,
creeping up. It was very
that was a
silently.
20x, I believe. So let me see here. 14, 15, yeah, 15x. Um,
So it was silently moving.
it's
So
it's because there's still adoption happening. Like innovation doesn't stop. And the thing is that cryptocurrency is just a byproduct of innovation, and that innovation is blockchain technology. And there will be companies that implement blockchain technology into their everyday systems. It's like I 100% wholeheartedly believe that. And so if you really take the time to understand that and understand what blockchain technology does, then it might click for someone else as well. And then you want to hold, you want a dollar cost average, you want to accumulate as much of this technology resource as you can, especially if you go back to the fact that I pointed out in a 4 year period, there's never been a time where you're not in profits with this asset. And so if you think adoption is going to continue, then it only makes sense to use this time. You don't need to go all in, but you could use this time, like I said, the dollar cost average. Hey, whatever you can afford, right? So the way I explained it to my mom was, I was like, hey, if you go to the grocery store and you drop some money out of your purse, what amount would you not be like extremely upset about? Maybe it's $5, maybe it's 50. Maybe you'd be like, oh, if I dropped $100, oh well, maybe a homeless person found it or something. Maybe that's nice, right? If that's your mindset towards $100, well, then that's the amount you can afford to invest, right? So you just invest that $100 every month, every week, whatever you feel comfortable with, and then just do that over a given period of time. And over that given period of time, it's proven. You can prove it. I can prove it on any, not any chart, but I can prove it on the Bitcoin chart. You've never not been in profits over that span of time. So with all that said, that was a very long-winded way of saying that even if this is not the bottom, I have been buying. And if I was just to kind of throw a price on it where I think it would go, I'm hoping that where is it? The 16K level holds. And if not, then maybe we see 12. And either way, I'm buying all along those ways. So I'm looking at the current period that we're in, as pretty much what happened from like April of 2018 through April of 2020, where it's just a long consolidation.
yeah, and I want to mention also that Justin and I, we've done a lot of podcasts, and I've done a lot of podcasts with others as well. All touching on the topic of blockchain, Web3, what else? Crypto, metaverse,
Mhm.
everything, and how we use like examples of how it could relate to the the future. So It is
Yeah,
all
there's
about educating yourself and understanding, because I didn't understand any of this stuff. And like, there's so many examples and like no-brainer kind of scenarios that it's gonna be adopted in. And it is gonna be tied to the future. So like, and there's a lot of stuff. This is 230 episode 231 on the podcast. I don't know, I probably have like 10 episodes with Justin going through step by step of all this stuff and knowledge. And I have a bunch others with crypto people and hedge fund managers and stuff talking about metaverse. Even I have a couple of architects come on talk about architecture in the metaverse and all this stuff. So like, there's a lot of new subscribers to the channel, and they're probably like, "Oh man, crypto, blah blah blah." No, man, you gotta educate yourself. You're gonna get left behind. So I was
let
I
me
was
make
on
a
that boat.
let me make a quick plea,
Yeah.
So like, all right, I started learning about this. And at first, like I said, 2017, I just wanted to make money. After I came back to investing, I started looking into what blockchain was. So, like, in the most basic sense, most people have heard of Web 1, then you've heard of Web 2, and now, you're hearing about Web 3. Web 1 was basically where you could only read on the internet. It basically was the internet was a newspaper. If you remember the old school links that were always listed on the left hand side, and you would click on the link and it would take you to something to read, you might be able to type in Ask Jeeves, but like that was about it. You could only read. That was considered Web 1. Then we had an upgrade or a facelift, and it went from Web 1 to Web 2. And Web 2 allowed you not only to read, not only, read the newspaper, but it allowed you to write. And I'm doing air quotes for anyone listening on audio. It allowed you to read and write. And when I say write, I mean you were able to post to your MySpace wall, right? You're able to upload pictures. Eventually, you're able to upload videos. You're able to write to the internet. So you could write on the internet, or you could just read on the internet. So Web 1 was like the newspaper, you could only read. Web 2, you could write and read. And now we're going into Web 3, which is just a facelift or an upgrade to the back end. So just like from Web 1 to Web 2 was a facelift or upgrade to the front end, where now you can see videos and everything looks a lot cooler, right? The HTML, the user interface is a lot easier to understand. While Web 2 going into Web 3 is a facelift or upgrade to the back end. We're going to implement blockchain technology into a lot of our existing Web 2 databases. And once that happens, we as the user shouldn't even know it's happening, right? Once blockchain is being used and we don't know we're using it, that's when we can look back at these investments that we're talking about now and like, oh yeah, did you ever get into that? This could have been probably was a good idea.
It's literally, well, not exactly literally, but it's Amazon all over again. Like we've seen this movie before, and like it's 1999 all over again. And man, I'm really a student of history, man. I've had some people come on here and we talk about the 1999 bubble, like people that were directly involved with it. Because like, you know, we're pretty young and we didn't experience that. We were like in grade school when 1999 was happening, totally oblivious. But that was what was going on. Right now is the
We
same
only cared
thing.
about the Braves.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's like human behavior, it tends to rhyme. So like Amazon hit really high. It was in the hundreds, back then, and then it crashed all the way to $6. There was a few other stocks that did the same thing, something similar, and a lot of the other stocks. I remember one of my favorite examples is Mark Cuban's. Mark Cuban actually made a lot of money from broadcast.com. So he basically bought a domain, and he had a little studio. I think about this a lot. So like I have a little office here, right?
Right.
Mark Cuban had the same kind of little office, and he bought the domain broadcast.com, bought some studio equipment like I got right here. And now I got this broadcast.com, and he just makes a valuation, and the valuation goes, oh my God, this broadcast euphoria, oh the future broadcast about, all this stuff. Can you imagine? And then you're gonna broadcast the whole world from this little thing. Anyway, so when Yahoo was at when no, actually when the market was at the dead top in 1999, he sold it for shares of Yahoo, and then immediately unloaded and dumped everything. He sold at the dead top of 1999, and then like he made several billion dollars, and that was it. And like I recently saw Mark Cuban talking about Shark Tank. He's lost like 90% of everything he's invested in, but because like people don't realize Mark Cuban was a one-hit wonder. Yeah, he talks a lot. He bought the Mavericks and all that, but he made his money off of a pump and dump, and like a shell corporation, it was a broadcast. It was just a title, because I always thought before I started educating myself on this stuff, I thought he like made something
Or
super
some great
innovative.
businessman.
Yeah, something crazy. Broadcast.com must have been this crazy genius thing. No, it was just domain name and a little studio. You had some couple little assets. That was it. That was broadcast.com. Just like pets.com, you said, so people buying up these domains and like everyone's euphoric and like it's almost like that the NFT that I was telling you about, the vampire NFT, it just goes from $50 to $6,000 based off of what, just because it's a vampire NFT. This is broadcast.com, just a name, or pets.com or laundromat.com, I think went
It's a
to like
fugazi. It's a
$1,000.
fugazi.
It's a fugazi. It's a fugazi. No one even knows what it is. Fugazi. So like, yeah. So it's like, where was I going with that? I totally forgot. But
Well,
yeah,
just I think you're saying just like be aware because like if you're not an educated investor, there's things that are just going on. You just believe
yeah,
anything, right? So it's like
exactly.
it just like you were saying, it is just in my opinion, it is very, very similar to the 2000s, the dot-com bubble. And similarly, a lot of things will crash. Most will fail. I'm not saying that there's over like 20,000 cryptocurrencies now. Like a year ago, there's only 13,000.
Oh, really? I didn't
So
even
like
know that. Yeah, okay.
yeah, so I'm not saying like I don't want people to think like, oh, this guy just crypto, crypto, crypto. I'm not saying that all these projects will do well. I'm saying that like if you get educated and you take the time to understand like tokenomics and vesting schedules and the teams that are going on and what the technology that they're building is, that you can at least give yourself a chance to maybe get something out of it instead of just saying like, oh, Dogecoin is going to the moon because this YouTuber said it. Like,
Yeah,
so
that's
that's more
ridiculous.
so. I think most of them are going to fail. Most cryptocurrencies and NFT projects are going to fail. Although, just like the dot-com bubble, you'll have your Amazons, your Googles, your Microsofts, your Facebooks, your whatever. So
So Justin, we know, okay, so Bitcoin and Ethereum, that's kind of like Amazon and Google. What else are like one or two more? So I know like usually three or four is like what I usually have my eyes on. So we got Ethereum,
so
Bitcoin. What are like the Google, Amazon, Apple, and
it's hard to say, right? Because it's so early, but there's like some outside bets and there's like some reasonings why. So really, you just got to find the narrative. So like you can reverse engineer by looking at a token or a crypto and asking or first saying this is a scam, right? Assume that everyone you look at is a scam and then prove to yourself why it is not a scam. And you'll be much safer if you look at it with that like framework and that reference, right? If you go into it saying, look, this is a scam, and then you're just looking through and you're just adding points of trying to say, all right, let me prove myself wrong, this isn't a scam, and let me go through and figure out why. That's going to be a big help in educating yourself on where to look. But then when you just look at market caps, some of the big ones, and I'm not endorsing these are just some of the big players in the space. So you have Ripple, which is XRP, and they're basically more of a centralized type currency, and they want to work with CBDCs, which are central bank digital currencies. I'm not a big fan of Ripple, but they do have a big backing. There's Cardano, aka ADA, and they're a smart contract platform similar to Ethereum, but they're already proof of stake. They work off a different type of basis where they do what is called I forget the name of peer review, something peer review. Basically, they do all their blockchain actual inner workings are all peer reviewed on paper on white papers before they're actually implemented. So they move at like a lot slower pace than some of these other blockchains. But I personally like them. There's Solana. So Solana has kind of gotten a bad rep because it has a lot of venture capital funding, but like all these tokens have venture capital, so it is what it is. But anyway, so Solana, it has really good TTP, transactions throughput, meaning that it can do a lot of transactions very quickly for a very low fee. So when you think like Microsoft and Visa right now, how they charge like 1.5% for every transaction, if you can use something like Solana's technology where those transactions are going to be way, way cheaper, when you have a company that's doing trillions of dollars in transactions, that's a huge deal. Also, caveat, Bitcoin is now traded over $100 trillion on its blockchain with zero downtime. So that's a pretty good accomplishment. So that was Solana. You have Polkadot. So a cool thing is Polkadot as well as Cardano were both created from a brainchild of Ethereum. So Charles Hoskinson and man, I forget the guy's name. That sucks. Everyone always forgets his name. And the Polkadot creator also helped create Ethereum. So those are some of the big ones, especially by market cap. Some of the ones that I personally like are Chainlink. So Chainlink is an Oracle protocol, which basically all these blockchains need to pull data in to say, hey, like, say I have a bet with David, and I said, David, you know, by the end of 2023, Bitcoin is going to be at $30,000, and David says it's going to be under. Well, we can put that bet into a smart contract, and we both say, hey, I put up 10 Bitcoin, you put up 10 Bitcoin, whatever the price of Bitcoin is, you know, the loser has to lose their Bitcoin and it goes to the winner. And we can have that automatically executed through a smart contract and through an Oracle. And so to pull that data and find out, is Bitcoin over 30K, when and where and all that, you would need something in Oracle, which is Chainlink. So I really like them. So, you know, I could ramble on literally for, you know, on and on and on. But so those are a few projects that like I really like personally, or not all of them I like personally, but just some that show real use cases.
Gotcha. Great, man. Well, thanks for running all that down. I'm gonna start to wrap it up now. So, Justin, how can people find you? You want to talk about the community a little bit? What's going on with that?
Yeah, man. Appreciate if you guys are into crypto at all, you can follow me on Instagram. It's But Woulda. So BUTWOULDYA. Like you shoulda, you coulda, but would you? You don't want to be looking back in a few years like, dang, man, I really could have done something there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
shoot me a subscribe on YouTube. I try to put out content educational like this. Sometimes I'm just talking trash. Sometimes I go into deep dives. So all types of stuff like that. But yeah, But Would You on all platforms. I appreciate you having me on, David.
Awesome, man. So, Justin, yeah, we'll touch base soon. We'll do another one of these probably in the next couple of weeks or so. Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on once again. It's always good to connect with you.
Yes, sir. Catch you on the next one. Later.